so we're going to talk, this is going to be awesome. We're going to talk about a topic that I think, we got 3 athletic directors here we'll introduce to you in a minute, but we're going to talk about the topic of uncertainty. Anybody in an uncertain place in their journey right now? Nobody's got their, okay, a few hands. I was like, everybody should have their hand up at some point on their journey here with just, I mean, for me, I'm in an uncertain place right now in a few different areas. But we got 3 athletic directors here. I want to introduce you to Graham Neff. He is with Clemson University. He's their athletic director.
Chair's all good. All good. I just wanted to open it. The little cushion malfunction. We're all set here. Thanks.
That's Graham. Jamie Boggs is with Grand Canyon University. She is their vice president of athletics. And Jamaal Walton is VMI, Virginia Military Institute's director of intercollegiate athletics. Let's give it up for these 3. These chairs are comfortable, by the way. All right, so we have 3 athletic directors here, and we're going to talk about uncertainty. It feels like I said, something that each of you are navigating on an everyday basis in your jobs. It feels like probably on your journeys as well. Let's start with Jamie. Share a time in your leadership where you faced significant uncertainty, and maybe how your faith has guided you in your response to that uncertainty.
Well, I've just gone through that with our university over the last several months. We didn't know what conference we were going to play in or be in until Tuesday of this week, and that was
like 3 days ago.
Yeah,
Tuesday.
literally three days ago. Wow. And just so I'm going to be careful because we're all in litigation. We're always in litigation. But just a little history. We were in the Western Athletic Conference. We got an invite into another conference that was supposed to start this year, and then subsequently got into an invite to another conference, the Mountain West Conference, and so we declined that invite, but had no place to go for 25, 26. We were only secure for 26 and beyond. And so, again, as of last week, we had no place to go, and we start play in fall sports in August. So, times like that, when there's a lot of uncertainty, you get a lot into I and me mode. Everyone's asking me what we're going to do. All the coaches are calling me and trying to figure out what's going to happen. Everyone on social media is criticizing me, and I know what I'm doing, but they're saying I don't know what I'm doing. And it's really easy to get caught up in I and me mode. But I always go back to the verse that it's written on my wall, and in times like these, and that's do not do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, consider others above yourselves. Yeah. And I really needed that during this time, because as much as I was dealing with anxiousness and uncertainty, I mean, at least I'm in charge. I knew the information. I kind of knew what was going on. I knew what the plan was, even though there was a plan A, B, and C. But I started to think about the others. What they were feeling was probably twice as much as what I was feeling, 3 times as much as I was feeling, because they had no idea what the plan was. They had no idea what the options were. And so I made it very intentional to make sure that I was very focused on how do I serve the people who are relying on me with these decisions. And so that turned out, we did a lot of communication. I would take a lot of phone calls. I would just sometimes let them vent. Sometimes they just needed to vent, our coaches, our staff. But again, it was turning that focus to how do I serve them in the toughest times of uncertainty. And fortunately, it worked out. We got our plan A, and we're heading to the Mountain West Conference. But throughout the process, I do feel that we made sure that our staff, our student athletes, our campus felt as secure as possible in very insecure time.
Yeah, that's really good. Graham, is there a time for you that you can share just in that place of uncertainty, and how you were able to walk through that?
Absolutely. I would love to tell a story with that regard. Before I do, just really appreciative to be here and this conference, so to speak, but really just this group of people. And just the time that you're all committing to yourselves and to each other and to our industry. It's really, really special. Personally for me too, I'm from Atlanta. Clemson's just 2 hours up the interstate, so I just drove down earlier this afternoon. But from Atlanta originally, suburbs. I went to school at Georgia Tech here in the city, and when I started school, I went to North Point Church for a decade, which is pastored by Andy Stanley and a sister church in some regard of Passion City Church here and Louis Giglio. And so like just kind of I don't know if it's full circle, but just like this means a lot to me. So I really appreciate just the time to sit here and be with you all and share. To your question, Jason, uncertainty, I guess turmoil is probably a better word. I'll try to be succinct. But for me, I've been in this role at Clemson for 3.5 years now. I've been at Clemson over 13 years, but 3.5 years in this role. And so it was the winter, it was December of 2021 is when I was able to transition into this role. So without belaboring all the career details, my predecessor and one of my mentors in life, Dan Radakovich, who's now the AD still is the AD at Miami, he was leaving to go to Miami, and this is December of 21. And that was, so I was very in the loop with Dan, and that transition was, had its own chapter in my book. But the opportunity to succeed and work with our president and transition in this role was certainly a career goal and just a huge professional aspiration that we all have those in our lives, and certainly for me at Clemson. My point is, balance that. That was the professional change, so less of the uncertainty, but change, but uncertainty. Like your boss is leaving, so to speak. It's a job that I was pursuing or wanted to, aspired to, but you just never know, right? The other side of that coin for me, all at the same time, it was personal. My mom was going through, she had cancer, pancreatic cancer, really hard. And she battled that for 1.5 years, right? And this is December of 21, so we're kind of like COVID's kind of been a thing, and we're on the tail end of that. Omicron, you remember Omicron? That was like back at this time, holy cow. And so she was going through that battle. She lived here in Atlanta, and my brother and I, my younger brother, who was living in Hawaii at the time, so we're trying to manage that, like with my mom. My parents are divorced, so my mom was in the house by herself. All that to be said, cancer was progressing, and she was really struggling to the extent that she was at our home that I grew up in. She was in hospice care, and she ended up passing on January 1st of 22. I officially got this job, so to speak, on December 23rd of 21, like a week later. So all in this time period, and really this whole month of, call it December and leading up to it, was this professional uncertainty, call it, and transition, albeit in a very positive light, right, and achieve some career goals, whatever you want to call it. While personally, my mom, is ultimately reaching the end of her life. And so just the emotions of that, and we all have various stories and just the overlap of personal and professional, which I think in our industry is one of the most unique and important. Balance is such a colloquial term, but just like mix and blend and how we all do that at different seasons of life. So, but for me, at this season of life, like this really acute time period where this was professionally, this was transpiring and personally transpiring at the same time. All while, as an aside, my grandmother actually passed away too in a little bit more of a sudden form. So all of this and all that to be said, I distinctly remember like this defining time or like conversation where it was officially announced or hired into this role. Again, you have conversations with your president and board or whatever it be along the way, but formal nature, and it was announced, and great. Right after it was done, this is December 23rd, my president, Jim, who I've worked with, and he's a mentor and, who ultimately hired me, called me right after and said, hey, congratulations, da-da-da. Go home with Kristen and, have a bottle of wine, celebrate, congratulations. And in the side of my front of my mind, I'm literally leaving the office that day, that afternoon, December 23rd, I'm driving down here to Atlanta to be with my mom, who's, at hospice at home and just isn't, it's the end is near. And so like, I'm getting a little emotional, I didn't mean to, but like, golly, that was like a lot. So all that to be said, I'll finish my personal story, the story itself, just by way of like, okay, how'd you handle it? Ultimately you just come back to faith and change and what your fundamentals are and family and people. So I don't know that I have anything novel within that other than to say I did find myself, I had to maybe force myself at times to like embrace and enjoy that season of life. There's the professional side of it. Again, like that was a step. But because with my mom and her cancer fight, that was, you could always see it coming. And like, so the ability to be there with her and my brother and just like enjoy that time together personally, balanced or laced with this professional change and positivity. There was just a lot of emotions going. Mayo said it somehow like, oh, there's a lot going on, And so anyway, I hope that story maybe hit or it recalls back to various seasons of your life that you've had similar things like that. But for me, that was certainly something that tested and allowed me to come back to my faith in this moment of significant uncertainty, so to speak, on all sides of those coins.
Man, thank you for sharing that. I think we forget sometimes that when I ask the question and we're thinking from a work perspective, that we're all humans who are going through real life stuff. And so by you sharing it, I think really humanizes it. So thank you. Jamaal, how about yourself? I had this script here of questions and I'm like, I think you should answer this question too. And just how you kind of navigated uncertainty.
Yeah, I have a couple examples. So previous institution I was at, we had a transition of an athletics director. And at the time I was a senior associate athletic director. And with any transition, there's new things, there's new opportunities. So my role changed, when our next AD came in, so I had to accept that. And there were some things that I was like, man, I wish I could continue to do some of those things, but I had to endure those, endure hardships like a good soldier. And it started to affect me a little bit. It was like, man, I'm not having the joy I used to have when I went to work every day, but I still soldiered on because it's about the team, it's about everybody around you. And believe it or not, we had another AD leave, and then, the third AD came in. So there was a moment in time where I'm like, okay, am I supposed to be here? But at the end of the day, I ended up finding out that my alma mater had an opening for a job. And I obviously am the AD at my alma mater now at Virginia Military Institute. But through the uncertainty that I went through with the transition of the athletic directors, it really has prepared me because we're having a transition with our president. So we're gonna have a brand new president coming in, but I think I learned so much about myself going through that transition at the previous institution that is also gonna help me. And one other funny story about uncertainty. So obviously Jamie and Graham, they've obviously been around the block as athletic directors. This is my first year, so I'm on my 5th day, I'm going to Walmart, just grabbing a couple things, to put in the house, and I get a call from our senior women's administrator. She's like, our baseball coach is about to visit another school for a baseball position. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm thinking that everything's gonna be nice, but hey.
You're in Walmart? You're in Walmart when you get this call?
Yeah, I was in Walmart when I got that call, so I'm like, man. So I dropped the paper towels and I went back and I went to work, and we ended up retaining them, but that was a lot of uncertainty on day 5, but sometimes things like that happen, so.
Yeah, don't go back to Walmart, right? We'll go to Target instead or something.
Anytime I go down that aisle, I get a little shaky.
So I'm gonna stay with you, Jamaal, for a sec. When everything feels unpredictable because you got schedules and rosters and budgets and NIL and all these things that are happening, and this will go for you two as well, but we'll start with Jamaal. How do you stay grounded as a leader, and how does your faith play a part in that?
You gotta give yourself some grace. You gotta give yourself some grace. We're not perfect. As I mentioned, you gotta endure hardships like a good soldier, but you also gotta realize what we do, we're serving people. We're serving 300, 400 student athletes, so the ability to do that, that's what Jesus has done for us. So to have the opportunity to serve and realize what I'm working for, or who I'm working for, and as Mayo said, the instrument, I'm willing to do those things, so it doesn't make things as difficult for me when I'm going through those things. And when you really think about what we get to do, this is a great job. There's so many great things that we have the opportunity to do, but there's also some people that don't have these opportunities. So sometimes I just got to put certain things in perspective. And to kind of close the answer, there was a young man in the NBA draft. He got drafted by the 76ers, and he said that for 7 years, his house ran on a generator. Can you believe that? His house ran on a generator, and we're sitting in here with all of these great opportunities. So sometimes when I go through something or I feel that it's too tough, I realize where I'm at. And that helps me with all of this craziness, the NCAA and this, that, and the third, to put things in perspective, because it can always be difficult. It can always be more than what you think.
Yeah, that's good. Jamie, staying grounded as a leader with all that the responsibility comes, I think a lot of us, especially as believers in Jesus, have to incorporate spiritual disciplines and habits that have helped us navigate seasons of chaos or indecision. What are some of those for you?
Yeah, when things are so chaotic and so uncertain, it's really easy to start to get busy. And the things that you might normally do when you're disciplined and when you're, reading the Bible, following the Word, prayer, those are usually the first things. They shouldn't be, but they're usually the first things that you start to sacrifice on. And what I've realized is I have to be extremely dedicated to going back to the Word, because that's always what gets me through it. I had an eye-opening conversation with my daughter. It wasn't even a conversation. She pointed something out it just hit me in the gut. She said, "Mom, you used to read the Bible every night. You don't do that anymore." And I wanted to just absolutely and of course they're our kids, and so they're very truthful, and I had to scramble and come up with an excuse. I was like, "Oh no, I got the app on my phone. I'm reading it on my phone." But it was eye-opening to me, and I realized that I really need to continue to stay focused on the Word. And so that's been something I've been very disciplined about. It's never enough, but I'm very intentional about sticking to, no matter how busy I am, to find a time to read. Secondly, I turn to others that are strong believers. Iron sharpens iron. There's no question about that. And I've had a lot of really tough personnel decisions to make, and I call Jay Jacobs. And he has talked me through it. I know he's gonna guide me and provide unbelievable wisdom. And so I'll call him. I'll call Bob O'Dean. I'll talk to Wayne Simeon. The people that I know, their decisions come from their Christ-centered hearts. And so it's those two things that really I try to focus on. Focusing on the Word and reaching out to others who I know who are very strong in their faith.
How about you, Graham?
Mayo, I love your instrument reference. Jamal, after listening to your instrument reference from Mayo, I don't know if you guys, I'm never going to look at a flute the same way, for sure. Favorite verse is Proverbs 21:31, prepare the horse for a day of battle, but victory rests with the Lord, different versions. Back to kind of give yourself grace, Jamal, we all work our tails off. Care, service mentality, whether that's our student athletes, coaches, donors, right? It's a little bit of an elected official type industry or positions we're in. But at the end of the day, call it luck, call it 18 to 22-year-olds, ball's gonna bounce funky. Those type of things matter. There's a scoreboard in our industry, and there's only so much, there's even less that we can do in some regard than what our coaches, coaches talk about that all the time. I've chosen a profession that it's 18 to 22-year-olds, and holy cow. So my point is just the mentality from the verse of hey, I'm gonna work my tail off, and I'm gonna try to make the right decisions at the right time, given the context, past circumstances, past history, current circumstances, future hopes and dreams. That was an Andy Stanley mindset, and making decisions, and then victory rests with the Lord. Funny way the football bounces, whether there's performance that adds up to continue on in a current role or not. But just the grounding, the settlement of that is something that I think about a lot in some regard from a faith connectivity, of course. I mean, it's my favorite verse, but I think it's so applicable to our industry. We got to do what we can, make the best decisions, values, ethics, morals, those type of things. And then, at the end of the day, it's not of us. And how that mindset changes things certainly helps me.
What do you do in terms of spiritual disciplines every day? What's that time like for you with the Lord each and every day?
Yeah, mornings for me, it's fleeting, no question, Jamie, to your point. I found, though, it's interesting in this role, you can, in theory, at least I sold it to Kristen, that I can control the calendar better. But that's the time where I do feel, not just the mornings, but like I do feel the ability to more of the meetings I'm in, like I call the meetings, certainly not all, versus like being included in meetings just because of organizational role. So I think maybe because of that, I do feel a little bit of internal acceptance of hard coding other personal times, whether that is go for workout or maybe I'm not in at 0700 because I am having some time at home by myself in thought, in prayer, in the Word, in the Calm app, whatever it may be, more critical than ever. And that's counterintuitive for me. My degree's in engineering. I'm a like check it off the list, go like task-oriented type mindset. So like keeping time on the calendar for like not productivity, check it off the list time isn't innate for me. It's hard. But I have certainly found just in 3 years, like the counterintuitive nature of that, and particularly the morning times before the day gets going is certainly part of it for me.
Jamaal, how about you? Time with Christ. Tell me about your spiritual disciplines and the importance of just making sure you stay connected to him first.
Yeah. It's hard. Oof.
Yeah.
You know, I try to do certain things, and then sometimes I can't be consistent. So one thing, and I'm just being honest, I'm trying to just be more disciplined. But I love music. So when I walk to work and I actually stay on post at VMI, I got to put my Pandora on. I like the Kirk Franklin. You know, so I'm usually listening to Kirk as I'm walking down with my earphones on. So I like to listen to music every day, and I just like to have that sense of joy when I start my morning. But speaking of joy, you know, my kids are 4 and 5, and when you think about the joy that they have when they see their dad and their mom, and they run up, that's the type of joy I need to make sure I'm having with Jesus. So I think one of the things that I'm always trying to do is when I wake up, I'm always looking at this thing, right? So I've been challenging myself to put my phone outside of my room. I know that sounds a little crazy, but taking the first 10 minutes and just be in peace, you know. And there's another guest room that I have, and I've been, you know, I'm in the hotel now, but taking about 10 minutes and just be peaceful. Don't do anything, just let God talk to you. And I'm seeking that consistency happen, but definitely listening to music and kind of that peaceful time I'm working on. And my kids actually are making me more disciplined because they're like, Daddy, let's pray, you know? So I want to model that behavior.
By the way, when your kids turn 21, they're cheering and excited when you leave the room, not when you walk in the room. But that's just my experience personally. Okay. Jamie, let's talk about your coaches. How do you equip your coaches to lead with faith and strength and when they're facing the uncertainties of their roles, right? Like dealing with roster changes and cancellations and criticism and everything that comes with that. How do you equip your coaches and kind of pour into them to be able to lead with faith and lead with strength?
Yeah, we're a little different situation than a lot of universities. Grand Canyon University, for those who don't know, we're one of the largest, probably the largest Division I Christian university in the country. Yeah. And we have the benefit where the coaches who come to our university, they come there because of our Christian mission, and they know that our mission is to grow the kingdom. And so, especially, you know, our high-profile sports. So, you know, as far as how do we equip them, we do a lot of, and we can do this, but we do a lot of Christ-centered leadership development. That is core to our university, and so we have our university pastor come in every month and talk about Christ-centered leadership and how it applies. And he was a former baseball student athlete as well, so he knows that we're going through some things that are a lot different from maybe the rest of campus. But overall, it's the intentionality of it, and we are very intentional in ensuring that Christ is the center of our athletics department. We're very fortunate it's the center of our university, and we're surrounded by it. So our situation is a lot different from others, but it's being intentional about ensuring that he is the center of everything that we do and grounding everyone back to that.
Yeah. Graham, how about you at Clemson? Obviously not a Christian university, but so many leaders, including your head football coach, that lead with faith out in front. How do you kind of navigate that world?
Yeah, all of our sports, I like to talk about it. Clemson, we have 21 sports, 16 head coaches. You know, track gets triple counted in there. But of our 16 head coaches, and for athletic directors, like, gosh, like that group, your head coaches, whatever the sport, football on down, so core, so critical to success, of course, but something I think about a lot, never having been a head coach, right? And that's the evolution from athletic director chairs, right? Where, gosh, you used to be the old coach or the old strength coach, Jay. And now it's just different, right? And so it's something that I'm just want to be really cognizant of, that I've never sat in that chair of a coach, or let alone a head coach, and just like that stress hits differently, and it's even more objective as far as your performance, right? Win, loss, what have you. And so my point is, like, I've come to, and I've had a lot of coaches in my career that I've just kind of like come to talk to about that, and it's really shaped a little bit of my administrative mindset, maybe. All that to be said, that group of head coaches that you have, that's always changing. We had 2 changes this year, and so that's our jobs, to make those hard decisions and evaluations and perhaps hires. But the camaraderie, the relationships, like how I interface with all 16 of them, how I have tools and structure that allows for the collaboration and synergy, what have you, for them, it's really, really important. All that to be said, to have a head football coach, particularly at a place like Clemson, that's as prominent and successful and as genuine and as faith forward as Coach Sweeney, as Dabo is, it's really unique. Now, I think stating the obvious, but the other side of that coin, and so yes, as a public state agency, we do have our values and the culture locally. It really hits differently at Clemson. I remember my first football game there, at least working there. I'd been a couple times on the visiting colors, so to speak, and so leading down to 000s at Clemson, we do a national anthem, of course, Pledge of Allegiance, University alma mater, a non-denominational invocation, and it's very regimented, but it's like very traditional in that nature, and that's just part of our place. Our people, our alums, our fans, and so we don't talk about having a Christ-centered mission when we're hiring coaches, but like there's just the gravity, right? And when there's good fit, that subjective term, like that just like fits at Clemson, and so we attract and we have, and we certainly look to foster and collaborate all the type of people that would be successful on the court, but off the court in a place like Clemson.
Let's stay on that word for a second, success, because I think success in the eyes of your role is winning. Like your team's in the NCAA, in the March Madness tournament, and okay, that's success. But how is your understanding, I'll start with you, Jamaal, of success shifted in light of when you walk through those uncertain seasons? Now, this is your first year in the job that you're in, but you've been doing this for a while. How has your understanding of what we would deem as success shifted for you in light of walking through those uncertain times, those uncertain seasons of life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, it kind of goes back to those young people, that we serve every day. I think the success is seeing them go out and be great people and graduate and come back, and whether they're alums or whether they're just doing positive things, I think that's what really success means for me. But I want to win, we want to win. But I think it's very important that we really understand that their parents are sending these young people to us, and it is up to us to really help grow and develop them. And having a mindset of that really that puts me in a position of that's success to me, making sure that those things happen.
Yeah. How about you, Jamie, with success and just navigating through that?
Yeah, we're very much a very performance-based, results-based industry. It's winning games, it's ticket sales numbers, it's revenue numbers, it's not fundraising numbers, it's GPA, it's APR, all of those things that are measurable. And I want to say something that's really profound, to say that as a Christian, we give grace when those aren't met, and that is not the case. Success is meeting all of those. It absolutely is, and Jesus held people accountable. And the thing about being at a Christian university is I get a lot of this. I get parents who are angry at me. You are supposed to be a Christian, and you let this coach kick my kid off the team. that is not Christian. I'm like, I'm sorry, ma'am, but she was batting 119. I'd have no reason to allow her on the team. And, we get that a lot. Or, a student athlete, I don't think I should be kicked out. I'm a strong, I'm a Christian. I'm a good person. I'm a Christian. You stole someone's scooter. You have to get kicked out of school. There's nothing, we have those conversations all the time. And the bottom line is, we are put in these roles for a reason. We're here to serve first. And for us specifically, I tell our coaches, and our coaches are all on the same page, we know we fight for championships because the more that we expose our story, the more we can grow the kingdom. So it matters for us more than others. So you will meet your goals. God still loves you, but you will meet your goals and there will be accountability. Now, I will say that how we treat people in the process of uncertainty and when goals are not met really matter. And that speaks to, again, I go back to the verse, valuing others above ourselves. And did we support them? Did we do everything we can to serve them through the process? So the process does matter, but the goals still have to be met. And success, it doesn't change because we're Christian.
Graham, can you have a successful season and not win?
Yeah, it's really good. And Jamie, I thought those were well said. I've heard you on different panels in the industry and just really precise on expectations. And you talk about, hey, at GCU you got 3 years. I've heard you talk on that. And
it's actually 2 years to win.
My goodness. All right, there we go. Bat more than 119. A couple things. One, you were talking about decision making, and actually one of our board members, a mentor of mine at Clemson, long time, he's older now, but long time successful CEO, et cetera. He always talked about decision making, specifically from the personnel side of things, ruthless in the evaluation, compassionate in the execution. And I've always thought that execution was a funny word there. When you're should you make a decision to make a change. But I just thought that mindset back to how you do it, but also the requirement of hey, there's a scoreboard and got to win 2 years or otherwise. And so that's certainly a thing I think about. Success. Can you have success without winning? Was your kind of last question there, Jason. Personally, I've worked with a coach, and success. My definition of success is worthy pursuit of a worthy goal. If I look in the mirror and apply that to whatever the task or aspiration may be. So if I move that over to coach evaluation, so at some point, it's our jobs to understand the vision of the coach for their program and how they're going about it, worthy pursuit, right? Okay, what's the culture of the program? Buzzword. How's the staff? Are they pursuing worthy pursuits? Are they going about it the right way? Now, even if the wins aren't there yet, or if they're not there at the time being, again, there's certainly a litmus somewhere in there. But I think there is now more than ever some broader context of how that gets evaluated, of the goal called the vision of where they want to go with the program, but how they're pursuing it, how they're building the program or sustaining a program.
Jamaal, want to add to that, how success in terms of not being about numbers, but about impacting people and really, I don't know, I think the idea of success, we get caught up in that. For you, you've been in this role a year, so you're still building. You just came in. How have you kind of, when you look at your situation and where you are right now, kind of built upon that?
Yeah, with our head coaches, I've developed 5 non-negotiables that I always, have talked to them about. And one is be compliant. We want to represent BMI well. We want to run a first-class program. We want to graduate student athletes to be great people. But the other one is compete to win, but with a championship mindset. And I think a lot of our programs right now are not where I want them to be. But if we don't have the mindset and the belief that we can get there, then what are we doing? We want to have coaches that see that and understand the importance of that, because that also helps the teams and the athletes that are around that. And that's the type of culture that we're trying to build. So there's so many things that I think I'm trying to establish this first year around, or actually going into year 2. But the biggest thing is being very upfront with the results we want to have and really trying to provide people with the resources to get there. But there are expectations.
Oh, yeah. I didn't have this question on my notes, but I'm going to throw it to you guys anyways, because why not? You're Christians, and obviously you love the Lord, but sometimes you got to let people go. Sometimes you got to make changes. How do you navigate that aspect of the role that you guys are in when it's time to pivot, when it's time to move on, and you have to have those difficult conversations, which I'm sure you all have? I'll ask Graham first.
The first coaching change I made was with baseball. And at Clemson, we like baseball, got a lot of tradition, high expectations. The point is, this was 4 months into the job, so not 5 days, but
Wow.
yeah. And our coach at the time, first-class guy, coach, salt of the earth, like just weren't good enough. It was a subjective decision just based on performance, win-loss, there's no other issues. Point of my story, and why this will be a chapter in my memoirs one day, Monty was my next-door neighbor. And like, not even like same neighborhood or like around the corner, like side yard, shared it, you know, like Neff boys would have tennis balls go in Monty's yard. So I say that to say, and I already had talked about like the importance, the relationships with all of your head coaches and how to try to strive to do that, I think at least in a different way. So I was really, really close with Monty. And he had been our head coach for 6 years. So 5 years prior, 5 years that I was in a different role, right? In more of a, you know, a support role in some regard, not the boss per se. And so was like really close, personally, let alone professionally, let alone neighborly. And so my point is, or what I kind of found in that circumstance is it actually made, and I don't know, because you think about it a lot now, like, okay, well, how close do you get to your staff or your coaches in this example? Because you want to be able to be objective in evaluation. Like, that's our jobs at the end of the day to make these type of decisions. Head coaches are obviously the biggest example. So I'm not saying that, gosh, you got to keep an arm's distance because, it's just hard. I think about it a lot because I want to be, I'm very relational in nature, and I want to be very connected with all of our head coaches. But I also need to make sure I got to be very objective. And so that's an art, not a science. Something I think about a lot. I found in this example with Monty, my baseball coach, that because we were so close, for whatever reason, I don't know, like I felt it allowed for me to still be objective in nature. And again, this was just a scoreboard evaluation, so to speak. But the execution was just like, it was like easier. I don't know. It just, I can't explain it. I'll never have another one like that. But that was my first one, and I've had plenty of others since then, 6 others, and they've all got their stories. But as an example for one of them, like that balance of like how close do you get relationally, and does that help or hurt the evaluation, let alone the execution? I don't know if there's any advice there, answer your question other than like, hey, that's a very thoughtful thing that is top of mind.
Yeah, how about you, Jamie?
Yeah, GC has been Division I since I think 2013, and that going from Division II to Division I is a significant jump. And so, for right away, we were told our directive was we need to make as many changes as we need to make sure that we're going to be successful right away at Division I. And so that process of figuring out who we should keep and not keep, it's definitely not easy because as Graham says, you try to keep arm distance, but you do become close with a lot of them. And we're very objective. We're very objective, and we have a lot of data. We keep stats, strength of schedule, how they schedule, and what are the wins, losses, all those kinds of things. And ultimately, what I've learned and what I've been taught by others is that I don't see hiring or firing as really my decision. God places people for a reason and a season. God has them move on for a reason and a season.
That's really good. So we're going to wind down here. Final question. Start with you, Jamaal. Let's talk about advice. What advice would you have for this audience? It's followers of Jesus in the sports world who might be feeling overwhelmed by the unknown right now.
Yeah. One of the things that I said earlier is give yourself some grace. Also, as Jamie mentioned, find some other people that you can talk with and you can lean on, because we all need it. You know, it's a lot going on. I think it's very important to realize that what this is a job, but we get to live in eternity, you know, with the Heavenly Father. So there is so much more than this. Obviously, there are things that come out of it that are great relationships and opportunities, but there's more to it. So realize that the job is something, but Jesus is everything. And that's just
write that one down. Job is something, Jesus is everything. That's really good. Jamie?
A lot of times when we're in chaos, it appears and we're in chaos and uncertainty, but if you look back throughout your careers and things you've experienced, you realize that things that you went through weren't really chaos and weren't really uncertainty, because they're not. We're perceiving them that way. It's God's plan and we're just following it. So prayer and asking constantly, am I following your plan? Am I following your plan? God, please guide me, because it isn't chaos. It's order, a system, and it's his plan.
That's really good. Final word, Mr. Graham.
Final word. I got a two-part component. Phrase think about a lot is in the absence of certainty, to your point, hey, when there's uncertainty, so in the absence of certainty, seek clarity, right? And so I think about that a lot for staff and how we're educating or making decisions, but even as you look at it, you know, personally, there's not a whole lot of certainty in our industry right now, in our lives, ultimately, right back to prepare the horse. But, you know, clarity, like here's where we're at. Here's what I know. Here's what's right in front of me, or here's what, here's some context. And so, again, that's maybe more of an organizational lens to it, but I think like the personal look in the mirror, uncertainty component. Second part to it, and Jamaal said it, but just, find your people, right? I find a lot of value in having relationships, even like locally within our community, outside of our industry. And that's hard, particularly with big jobs in small towns and you get that aspect to it. But having the kind of the outsider's lens or relationships or perspectives on things have helped. But then even certainly inside, whether that's colleagues. I'm looking at my dear friend and brother, Laird Veach here at Missouri. We're in a men's group that we get together in Zoom every 3 weeks. And it's hard, right, Laird, for us to stick to the calendar. And holy cow, we got an hour and I got like 17 things. But I always find myself so refreshed and energized after moments with your people or yourself and focused on your faith and broader picture and just contemplation and prayer. And so as an example, so that time when we do commit and make it happen, just the tailwind that gives you, even though it's an hour on a calendar that you don't have, none of us have, right? And so I always just find just the commitment to that and making it happen in a relational, people sense, specifically just from a faith circumstance within our crazy lives and jobs. It's always value giving and centering. While it's not easy. So just that encouragement that I have to give to myself when I look in the mirror, but then I know, that hits us all in different ways, I hope.
Graham Neff, Jamie Boggs, Jamaal Walton, thank you guys.
Could I end with a poem?
Yeah.
Can I end with a poem?
Go ahead.
Can I end with a poem?
You absolutely can. Go ahead.
Poem?
Yeah, this is a poem I say sometimes if I'm going through a tough time. So it couldn't be done by Edgar A. Guest. Somebody said it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he be the one who wouldn't say so till we tried. Somebody scoffed, or you'll never do that. At least no one ever has done it. But he took off his coat and he took off his hat, and the first thing he knew, he begun it. With a lift of a chin and a bit of a grin, without any doubting acquitted, he started to sing as he tackled the thing that could not be done, and he did it. There are thousands that tell you it cannot be done. There are thousands that prophesy failure. There are thousands that point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. Just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just start to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you do it.
Let's go. A little spoken word. Thank you, guys.